I'm going to kind of give a moderator's perspective here and kind of give you some overviews, and we'll let these guys talk about more specific portions of our trip. First of all, we went to Kansas City, as most of you are aware, to work with an organization called No Place Left. And that comes from Paul in the Bible, talking about that during his missionary journey, he had, the gospel had been spread so much throughout the area he was in that there was no place left for him to do any more work, and he needed to move on. And so their goal in Kansas City is to do so much work for the gospel and have the gospel spread so far and wide within that city that there would be no place left for the gospel, or that the gospel had not gone out. So that's kind of the mission that we got connected with them. You may see some pictures of him at some point, but through a friend of Erica and I, Erica and mine, named Tom Hall, who we went to church with in Indianapolis, who is now a missionary with No Place Left to Kansas City. So we got connected with him, and he's coordinated everything for us and put us to work. So that's how we got connected out there. As I shared with you, their vision is first and foremost to make the gospel go out in the city. And one of the ways that they do that is by partnering with churches in different areas of the city to help that church be revitalized and be trained in sharing the gospel. And specifically the church that we worked with is called Central Baptist Church on the northeast side of Kansas City. And Mike's going to tell you a little bit more about that.
Yeah, basically our days were divided into two parts. In the mornings, we spent about 4 hours each morning doing some renovating at Central Baptist Church. It is a Baptist church on the northeast side of Kansas City, one of the poor areas. There are a lot of immigrants there, a lot of refugees. So this church is a church of about 50 on Sunday morning. The pastor is a young man by the name of Samuel Nelson. He has a young family, and he's just finishing up seminary. But this church is, as I said, in a difficult neighborhood. There's a lot of poverty there. There are a lot of African refugees, not African American, but actually African refugees there from various parts of Africa. In fact, there is a second congregation that meets there. And what is their name again? Is it Burundi or something? Burundis and Somalis congregation. And they were there part of the time when we were working on the church. And they're fascinating people, very friendly. They dress very colorfully. I was teasing Christian that we need to dress like their pastors do. They have these big white shoes and bright colors, and the women wear flowing colors and everything. But great folks. But what we did in the mornings was do some renovation on the church. We had to tear out the old stage or platform and build a new one, and then we tore out all the carpeting and what was left of the padding, and chipped and broke all the tile in the rooms so they could recarpet and do things. And I have to tell you that Kenny Felker was really the hero of that part of the day. That stage would have got built if he didn't build it. I remember being in the back part where we were doing carpet and everything, and Andrew helped Kenny up front on the stage, and Andrew comes walking back and shaking his head. He said, "Kenny's amazing. He just knows what needs to be done with that," and it got done and looks very nice, and they were very pleased with what was going on there. And so we worked at that church and helped them get ready for new carpeting and some renovation that they were doing. And in the afternoons, we spent about 4 hours in connection with them and No Place Left, sharing Christ and praying for people out in the community.
One other small tidbit about where our church was at. The portion of that city, or a part of the city, is the oldest portion of all of Kansas City. It was originally founded and begun by the Italian Mafia. So it's a very interesting part of the city because you have some really old buildings and old heritage families of Italian Mafia type people combined with young African refugee families. So picture that combination in your head, and it makes for an interesting community. So with that said, we went out sharing. 3 different days. Sunday afternoon, we went to a little bit more get your feet wet, more what we're accustomed to type neighborhood. A few more white people. And then on Monday and Tuesday, we were right around the Central Baptist Church area, which was a little bit more gut testing, per se. And you'll hear more about that as we go. But during that time, the way that we went out sharing, if you were in Sunday school at all, you might be familiar about this, but it was basically done by prayer walking. We're not trying to beat people's doors down and make them hear the gospel from the outset. We want to serve people through prayer. And so we would go up to people and basically just knock on their doors, and when they puzzled look at you and say, what are you doing here? We just ask them, hey, we're out in the community because we care for you. And we just want to know, can we pray for you for anything? And usually that beats down the wall pretty quick. Because they realize, hey, they're not trying to sell me anything. They're wanting to do something for me. And of course you get some that are like, no, I'm good. But there were many people that we were able to pray for. And then transition and sharing the gospel. And Christian is going to tell you a little bit more about how that goes.
Well, yeah. So first and foremost, knocking on people's doors and talking to them or asking them to pray for them is not as scary as it sounds. I promise you. I'm comfortable in my faith. I think it's pretty obvious given my career choice. But going and knocking on random people's doors can be absolutely terrifying. And so I can understand that. In the first day, I was really, really nervous. But it was just one of those things where it got easier as you went along and did it. And, once you got just talking with people, just all that, fear and insecurity just kind of went away. And, you realized, we were there for a mission. And that kind of just, took over. And that was kind of the fuel that propelled us forward. But so I promise you, it's not as scary as it looks or sounds. It's actually really, really fun and really, really cool to get to talk to all sorts of different people, especially in that area. You can talk to many different cultures within just one block. So that was really, really cool to see and witness and be a part of. But really, how we learned about sharing the gospel with people in those neighborhoods was simply, we opened up and asking them, can we pray for you for anything? And basically, after we got done praying with them, we would try to basically talk to them about the 3 circles. Andrew, do you want to talk about the 3 circles? Okay, well, basically how we would talk to them is, we would relate with them on some level. We talk about one circle, how it is completely broken, and as a result of the brokenness, we'll try to get out due to various things, whether that be drugs or alcohol or relationships or whatever else. But, the world wasn't always broken. It wasn't always shattered or the way we know it. It was perfect at one point in time. That was due to God's design. And basically what happened was, we all know that sin was the result of, or that's how the world became broken, was a rebellion against God. And we would tell them that since God is a perfect Father and a good Father, that He sent His Son Jesus down to die on the cross and rise again and pay for our sins, and that's how we eventually get back to God's design. So that's a little bit of what we would share with them. That's a very brief, 15-second overview of what we would do. So it's not very complicated. It's quite. So it was pretty cool as well.
Yeah, as Christian shared, we would share that little 3-circle story with them, and then when you finish, you would ask them a question. You have the circle that is representing brokenness, and the circle representing God's design and perfection. And we would ask people one of 2 things. Either, one, which place do you see yourself? Or, would you say that you are close to God or far from God? And then just listen to their answer and respond accordingly. If they say, yeah, I'm real close to God. Oh, well, can you share with me why? And that might be someone that's a believer that we can work with in the future. Or it might be someone who's confused about what it means to follow Christ. And we can work with them in that way. If they say they're far from God, or they say that they're in this broken circle, that would be our chance to say, hey, if you knew today that you could be close to God, would you want to be? Is there anything holding you back from that? At that point, we would categorize people as a yellow light. They're thinking about what we're talking about. And if someone responds with, yes, I would want to be close to God, and no, there's not anything holding me back, that would be someone we would consider as a green light. We want to pray with them and have them in their own words tell God what they're feeling, and then follow up with them later. Before we get to specific stories about that, let me share with you some numbers, because I'm a numbers guy, just to give you some perspective. We probably knocked on 1,000 doors or something, so not all of those are successful. But over the course of the 3 days of sharing, we were able to speak face-to-face with approximately 320 people. We were able to pray for about 105 people. The gospel was shared on a one-to-one basis with people 43 times. 11 different people responded as yellow lights. In other words, they were considering, thinking about, wanting to know more. And we had 3 different people that responded by wanting to follow Christ as green lights. And so 3 out of 1,000 doors doesn't sound like a lot, but 3 in 3 days does. So it just depends on perspective on how you look at that. But we want to talk about a little bit about specific stories of some people that we were able to interact with. And first of all, Kenny is going to share with us about one of our green lights that we met that he was able to share with, named Kenny.
First couple days I was out. Well, I was Mike the first day, and the devil got the best of me. I didn't share with anybody. Second day we didn't do the same thing. But on the third day, I went out with a young man named Spencer from Kansas City. They buried myself with somebody from Kansas City, and I was able to lead Kenny through the 3 circles, and he confessed Jesus, and he was a Christian, but he had backslid, and he was willing to go. And he said the sinner's prayer. It's kind of a neat thing, you know. But I think sometimes the worst thing we do as Christians is we don't share. You know, and that's what we're all called to do, is be disciples of all, you know, lead people to Christ, and that's our mission. So I thank you guys for sending us anyway, so that's all I got to say.
I also wanted to give the mic to Mike, so he could share with you a little bit about being able to speak with a Muslim lady.
Well, it's interesting because you think of people who are Muslims, you think of the Middle East or something like that, but most Muslims live in other places, and there are many in Africa. And we had some conversations, a few conversations with Muslims. Usually they won't speak with you at all, especially if it's a Muslim woman and her husband is not home. But it's interesting if you can engage them in conversation. I was going to say something a little bit more about that in the message. But a particular lady that I spoke to one time was one of the Muslims, and you find a number of these folks who think that we all worship the same God, and Christianity and Islam is basically the same. And I got to sort of share the 3 circles with her, explain the difference and all that. And one of the things that often that stops things is the cross. They will not talk to you about the cross. It's almost, I don't want to make too light of this, but it's almost, you feel like you're in a vampire movie, you know, when you bring the cross up to the vampire and they just kind of back away from that. They will not talk to you about the cross because that's a horrible thing to them. They do not believe that Jesus died on the cross, that Jesus was a great prophet, and Allah would not allow a righteous prophet to die on the cross. And then we have to explain to them why that's the case. And so, you know, we didn't get very far, but we had conversations with different people, and this lady was friendly, and I think she let us pray for her. I can't remember, Kenny, that was you and I, but we did get to talk to her a little bit and see the challenges that are there in trying to share Christ with those who belong to Islam.
Yeah, the whole trip was pretty cool. It was a nice experience. I didn't personally do a whole lot of sharing, but I was with Tom and he did a very good job at it. But but while out sharing, we met a guy named Joe, and Joe was a believer, but you could tell he wasn't like super strong in his faith. He kind of hung out with the wrong crowd, and he kind of backslid from going to church. But Tom got to started walking away and stopped us, and he was like, this happened for a reason. This wasn't just coincidence, and you could tell he had tears in his eyes, and it was really cool. That was definitely pretty mighty.
Yeah, the last one I wanted to share with you about is Kenny and I were on day 2. We were in it wasn't a great apartment complex. It was a little bit of a rough neighborhood, and we went to the first building and didn't have a single person open the door, I don't think, and so that was a little discouraging. But in the second building, I knocked on the door of apartment number 11, and this tall, lanky fellow came kind of bursting out the door, wanting to get away from the front of his door, presumably so we couldn't see what was going on in there, I guess. Which made me a little nervous at the moment, but we got to talking with him, and he explained that his, in his words, baby mama had taken his 2-year-old daughter and left, and he had no idea where they were. And so he was very upset and nervous about the fact that he might not see his daughter again. A lot of people, here might tell us when we share that the world is broken, they might try to tell us that they're good people. Or, I'm a pretty good person, I do this, I do that. But Brandon made no mistake. He said, yes, the world is broken, and I am very broken. And when we shared with him about what Jesus had done and asked him if there was anything keeping him back from following Jesus, he said no. And so we asked him if he could, in his own words, pray what we had just explained, and just talk to God and explain in his own words. And I was blown away with what he said. And his prayer was basically this. He started and said, Dear God, I know this seems crazy because I've never talked to you once in my life. But I want to give my life to you today. And that was just overwhelming. Just from my perspective, having grown up in church, for someone to say, I've never spoken to you once in my life. So, that was a good one for me to experience. And so, with that said, Josh wanted to talk just a little bit, and moving forward here, Josh wanted to talk a little bit about growth and being able to what he experienced and what he learned.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't do a whole lot of sharing. It was more like a kind of a learning experience, but it was really cool because I got to be with Tom all 3 days we were there, and he was kind of in charge of this whole thing. So he knew what he was doing, and being able to kind of follow in his footsteps was cool because I got to learn a whole lot of different things, maybe more comfortable with sharing. That was just pretty cool, and it was also cool seeing how many people that were non-believers were willing to open their doors and have random Christian people just pray for them. And a lot of these people weren't believers, and we were able to share the gospel with them. I thought that was really cool. It amazed me how many people were willing to hear the gospel. When I first got there, I thought everybody would just kind of shut their doors on us, but it's not how it was. It's pretty cool. It's a nice kind of experience.
All right. Last but not least, we appreciate your support very much. I want to make that known. We can go out and sow the seeds of the gospel, but God is the one who helps them to grow. And part of that is done through prayer for people, and through prayer for people to be able to hear and have willingness to hear. And I don't think it's any coincidence that people opened doors and were able to listen when they could have been doing other things. And I think part of that is God working through your prayers and other ways, shapes, and forms. So we appreciate that. And for those that provided financial support for us to go, we appreciate you very much too. But we don't want this trip to end on Wednesday when we came back. We want this to be a launching point for us as a group and us as a church to be able to share the gospel with our community and reach the people around us in our lives. I don't want to ask you to do that without being willing to do it myself. So I hope that you will ask me and hold me and these guys accountable to going out and continuing to share. And I hope that in some cases you will join us.